Oh, shit. I wasn't supposed to put that up. Anyway, guys, welcome back. We're going to do a special talking movies today, and we are going to talk Star Wars. What made Star Wars great? In my personal opinion, is one of the things that made the original Star Wars so great, and I was one of those kids that was fortunate enough, I've been around long enough that I actually got to see the original Star Wars in theaters. Now, I was so enthralled by this movie the first time I seen it, and my father had taken me to see it, and he enjoyed it so much that he actually took me back to see that first one 8 times. It was amazing. I couldn't get enough of it. I wanted to go back more, unfortunately. You know, I lived in one of those families where there really just wasn't that much money to keep going back constantly. Even though the ticket prices back then were a lot cheaper, the jobs didn't pay quite as much as they do today. But, you know, everybody's crying that they ain't making enough money. But yet back then they seem to have been able to make out okay. Well, whatever. Freaking people. Everybody's got to whine about something, I suppose. Anyway, I'm getting off topic there. I'm sorry about that. But what made this movie so great? What was so fantastic about it? It was the larger-than-life characters. It was that hero's journey. You start off with this incredible scene of this giant ship chasing the other one and attacking it. And then you see the droids and them talking, and then you see the troops come in. You see the Empire come in. The stormtroopers come in. They're attacking these rebel soldiers. You get action when you're first starting off with this movie. The wow factor of the initial shots of just that Star Destroyer after the Tantive 4 passes over the screen, and that Star Destroyer comes in, and that big, long procession of that shot of how incredibly large that ship was. It took it to a whole different level that really hadn't been seen in that time. And I mean, it's been done countless times afterwards, but nothing can compare to that first time on screen. There was something special about it. There was something amazing about it. There was something monumentally fantastic about it. It was beyond comparison at the time. This was a story for the ages. When I talk about my talking movies, and when I talk about timeless stories and legendary characters, this fits the bill. This has everything you could possibly want. So you get past the initial battle. The droids rocket down in those escape pods. And then we see them on Tatooine. And as the story progresses and we eventually meet Luke, the young farm boy who has aspirations to do more, but feels like he's just stuck in this situation. Who can't relate to this? Who, as a child, as a teenager, growing up, couldn't relate to that? You know, you want to do more, but you feel like you're being held back, and there's just no opportunity to get where you want to go. Tell me that you don't feel those same feelings that he felt, that you can't relate to it. Now, I would say that you're either devoid of emotions or you're just mentally bankrupt, because there's no way. Everybody has felt that at some stage in their life. And that was one of the things that drew you in. I mean, here's somebody that you could relate to who's starting off from nothing. He is no great hero. He's starting off as just an ordinary person, your everyday Joe, just like me and you. And then everything happens with R2 running off, and he goes to go after him. He gets attacked by the sand people. Ben Kenobi comes out, and then there's a whole interaction with him and Luke, and he finds out he's Obi-Wan Kenobi. And then, of course, he comes back and he finds that his step-parents are dead, that Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru are gone. And here starts the real beginning of his hero's journey. This is where he decides there's nothing left for me. There's nothing left for me now. I want to go with you to Alderaan. I want to learn the ways of the Force and become a Jedi like my father. The beginning of that hero's journey. He starts from nothing. He goes through adversity, and he finds a way to try to crawl out of that hole that life has pushed him into to become something greater. This is what makes the story so great. And then you meet other characters like Han Solo and Chewbacca. You see the Empire at the height of their power. The evilness of Vader, Tarkin, and the rest of the people within the Empire, all these generals, and it captures your imagination. Then you come to The Empire Strikes Back, which technically, if you know anything about the story and about George Lucas, you know that this was actually never really meant to happen. Star Wars was supposed to be a one-and-done story. And it was written that way. It was written as a complete story. And that's what made the first one so great. But you know what? It was such an amazing reaction to how Star Wars was received by everybody that George says, you know what? I can continue this. I can make a sequel to this. I can continue this story. And so he did. Because he left enough in that original one that, yes, there could have been a continuation of that story. And so he did. And he came out with The Empire Strikes Back. And many people say that this is the absolute pinnacle of the Star Wars franchise, that this is the best movie. I have to disagree. I personally am a New Hope lover. Empire is a very, very strong second, but there's something about the origin. When you have that origin movie, there's something about it that it stands out to me. Something that it just captures my imagination even more than the continuation of the story. And while there was incredible story in Empire Strikes Back, I still felt the first one was better. But you know what? We're already moving on to the next one, so let's get into The Empire Strikes Back. So we pick up where the first movie left off. So you have the great victory that they had in getting rid of the Death Star. But the Rebel Alliance is still on the run from the Empire. The Empire is still the controlling force in the galaxy. They're being hunted down by the Empire. And we see our heroes on Hoth in this cold, barren planet. And their struggles to get through. And everything that happens at that point on just sets the tone of that movie. That this is a darker movie than the first one. That there's going to be a lot more strife. That there's going to be a lot more adversity to overcome for these people. And as the story unfolds, and Luke finds his way to Dagobah after the Rebel Alliance manages to escape Hoth almost intact. Yeah, they lost some people along the way, as usual. It's a war. And of course it was going to happen. But he meets up with Yoda, and he begins his training in earnest. Han and Leia find themselves in a series of problems and escape the Empire. Almost get swallowed by a giant space slug. But the story, it keeps rolling. It doesn't stop. There's still no... Well, I'm super heroic and I'm there with all these powers, and it doesn't happen like that. It's still the hero's journey continuing on, and that's what still makes Empire a great movie as well as the first one. It continues the hero's journey. It doesn't just stop with, okay, well, he went through adversity in the first one, and now he's just wonderful and he's great and he could do anything he wants. It doesn't happen like that. And that's what pulls people back in. That's what makes these movies so great, is the continuation of that hero's journey. You watch events unfold, and you feel like you're invested in it because these characters are relatable. They're going through struggles that the everyday person goes through. So you get to the point where Luke gets the vision from his training with Yoda, and he knows his friends are in danger, and he has to go to try to save them. And then we see other characters introduced in the film where we start to see the bounty hunters. You see Boba Fett for the first time. Now, let's go ahead and eliminate the special edition version where we've seen him there. Obviously, that didn't happen. Why it's fine and dandy for a special edition release, it wasn't part of the original story, so it's out. So this is the first time we actually see these bounty hunters. We see Bosk, we see Dengar, we see Boba Fett, IG-88, Zuckuss and Forlorn. We see these new characters, the shady side. You know, they're not quite the Empire, and they're not quite as evil, but they're not exactly good either. They're out for the money. They're paid mercenaries. They're guns for hire. And you know what? Some people find that incredibly interesting too. And it is. It really is. And it just, you unwind to, Han going to Bespin, Boba Fett tracking them down, and then everything that unfolds afterwards, just adding to this incredible story, this incredible mythos that George had created, and which I'm sure he had no clue at the time it was going to be the juggernaut that it became. It was truly something spectacular. And I just don't ever see anything ever quite being to the level that the original movies were. Now, while many of the stories in the MCU came close, I don't really believe that they still captured quite the essence of what Star Wars captured. It was something unique, and it was something beyond reproach. It was something uncomparable. There's no other franchise that has been quite like the Star Wars franchise. So then we come to the next chapter, the Return of the Jedi. And once again, we're still continuing that hero's journey, except now, the young farm boy that we started off with, he has completed his training by this point, and he is a Jedi. And he comes in, but he still comes in with that Jedi counselor mentality where he wants to try to talk things out. And when that doesn't work, then he's got to rely on his Jedi training, and he's got to fight his way out. And even then, even though he is a Jedi now and he is a hero now, he's still not perfect. He is still not all powerful. He still is struggling. He has the internal struggles as well as his physical ability struggles of being able to do anything like some of the Star Wars movies do with Rey. Like, she's all powerful and she's all great. Oh, whatever. We'll get into that. But anyway, so we continue on with the hero's journey. And it's still compelling. And you still feel like you are coming along for the ride. You're still there with characters that you've enjoyed the whole time. Han, Luke, Leia, Chewie, 3PO, R2-D2. And of course, Lando and the rest of the rebellion. It's a masterpiece. I mean, what more can you say? It's an amazing movie. Now, there's some things about the Return of the Jedi that I didn't really care for all that much. A lot of the stuff with the Ewoks was cool, but sometimes I felt like some of those scenes were just drug on a little bit too long. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't like the center focal point of the movie for me. It wasn't something that actually was the be-all, end-all of the movie. They were cool. I really enjoyed the Jabba's palace scene, and I enjoyed the fights on Endor and everything, and of course the space battle and destroying the Death Star, and of course the epic confrontation between Luke and Vader and the Emperor. Unbelievable. And the way the story ends, with Vader finding redemption through his son, who still believed that there was good left in him. It's an amazing story. You can't beat it. You cannot beat it. There's no way that any other series can match what they did in those first 3 movies alone. I hope that you will be able to join me for the next part in this series. Obviously, it's already way too long, and I'm not going to sit there and upload an hour and a half to 2 hour long video because, you know what, my internet provider is not very good, and it would take me probably 14, 15 hours to upload something like that. So I'm going to break this down into 3 separate parts. So I will see you next time. Later, y'all.